What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I am back with yet another album review, and one that I was pretty interested in going over. Granted, my relationship with this band and their music has kind of been up and down over the years. Their last album I thought was really good, and I was kind of curious how they would follow it up. So today we are going to go over the latest offering from Fallujah, Xenotaph. This also comes out on the 13th of June on Nuclear Blast Records. This band formed in 2007 in San Francisco. This is their 6th album overall. I got into them with their debut album, The Harvest Wombs, which I think at that point, people were considering them deathcore. I don't know. I considered it more like tech death. It was brutal. It was techie. And that was good enough for me. But it was with their second album, The Flesh Prevails, that the band took a drastic shift to like more atmospheric, progressive death metal, lots and lots of ambience and chimey guitars. And initially, I liked it. I thought it was kind of cool. And then I saw them live twice doing that material, and it didn't translate as well live. Now, this band has had a fair amount of lineup changes, but it was with their last album, Empyrean, that I feel like they really kind of like solidified a sound again. They kind of, found this, I guess you could say kind of like sweet spot between tech death and progressive death metal. I'm not sure which one this band leans closer to, but it is definitely a blend of both. And again, there was a lot of turnover in the band, but over these last couple of albums, the band managed to recruit one Evan Brewer on bass, formerly of The Faceless, Entheos, and Animosity. That dude is a fantastic talent. So like I said, I was kind of curious about this one, especially since they were coming off what I saw as a really solid album, honestly, one of the best in their discography. And this is kind of a continuation of that sound. It definitely straddles the line between progressive death metal and technical death metal. It's packed with just crazy drum work, nuts riff changes. It's technical as hell, lots of lead work. Very comparable to bands like Allegion, Veil of Panath, I'd say Neuraxis, Obscura, and maybe even like a little bit of Psychroptic too. In fact, there's like some really fun riffy grooves that kind of just have that like Psychroptic flair to them. But at the same time, there's a lot of like progressive material that leans more like heavily into atmosphere and melody. It's very cosmic and spacey. There are definitely moments on here that kind of reminded me a bit of Cynic in terms of like the soundscapes they created, both with all the layered guitars and the synthy passages that kind of like lurk a little bit beneath the music. They're not too intrusive. That and another thing that carried over from the last album are a fair amount of clean vocals. The opening track, In Stars We Drown, is kind of like an opening suite to the album where you get these like clean, beautiful melodies and some pianos, some good vocal harmonies, and then it explodes in this like fun off-time groove with these razor sharp riffs. The drum work on this album is fantastic, and this is a session player they got, Kevin Alexander La Palerma. I don't know anything that he's played on before, but goddamn, this dude is good. His blast beats are tight, lots of clever footwork, great accents and cymbal work across the board. This dude is an absolute monster behind the kit. And his drums sound crisp as hell. And this was mixed and mastered by Dave Otero, who is excellent at getting very like rich, crisp production out of bands. Might border a little bit on overproduced at times, but we'll get to that. But this opening suite goes right into kaleidoscopic waves, and this song is explosive, monstrous. And this is where you kind of get like, I would say like a bulk of what this album does is going from like, just razor sharp and violent, just gnarly riffs, like savage, tight guitar work, lots of intricacies in the playing, rapid fire leads, solid growls and such, and then it pivots drastically over to something that is silky and smooth and more atmospheric. And that is kind of all over this album, and that's kind of what keeps me from calling it flat out tech death, and by extension kind of keeps me from calling it progressive death metal, because it's definitely a little bit of both. Throughout this album, you have a constant give and take between those two moments, and the vocals will flip along with that. You have a lot of these harmonized, clean vocals. They might be auto-tuned. I don't know. It might just be layered vocal harmonies that the vocalist is doing. But at times I would say they do have like a Cynic-like quality, especially in those like cleaner, more spacey, atmospheric passages. And those show up quite frequently, honestly. Labyrinth and Stone, while it is just a monstrously heavy song with some really good like kind of classic tech death moments, like fierce necrophagous vibes in certain sections, it will drop out into like these cleaner passages that again have a lot of like atmospheric beauty and such. Same thing with Step Through the Portal and Breathe. slower. It's a little bit catchier and more melodic to start before it inevitably erupts. And a lot of the transitions, I mean, you do have like some longer builds and such in terms of like getting into, like a more lavish bridge and such, but a lot of them are like stop on a dime, very abrupt, very jarring at times, but for the most part, I would say they make them work. Labyrinth of Stone is one where I'd say they make it work. That song is a flat-out riff buffet, and they come at you like every conceivable angle. Really cool, clever breakdowns, lots of these, twisting arpeggios everywhere. That constant shift between like more melodic, more ascending melodies to like more angular, more just like flat out like death metal riffs. And in between all the blasting, like some flat out catchy, just, good head bangable grooves, which sometimes tech death can kind of miss out on because they're too busy dazzling you with how many fucking notes they can play in like one measure. I like techie music, I like tech death, but I also like to hear those bands kind of like slow it down and hang on a riff for a second. Without those moments, it can kind of come across as like musical ADD because, again, the transitions are so quick and so abrupt at times that it feels like you've almost like skipped into another song. And making the songs stand out can be a little bit difficult too if you're just doing blazing fast riffing all the time. But for the most part, I hear this band is really good at like dynamics and having moments that really stick out, whether it's a clean vocal passage, some really interesting harmonies between like all the background ambient synths and like some cleaner guitars, or the absolutely awesome drum and bass section that shows up on Step Through the Portal and Breathe. That may have been the moment on the song where I actually did get a chance to breathe because it wasn't just beating me over the head with just insane riff after insane riff. And honestly, it was just awesome hearing the rhythm section kind of just take over. Again, Evan Brewer, amazing talent. These absolutely smooth, wonderful bass lines. Couple that with Kevin's drumming on there, it's just an absolutely catchy, fun moment, and I kind of wish it lasted a few more measures. As far as like tech death goes, though, I will say that this band favors melody more. Like there's just a lot of layered guitar harmonies in here. I believe lead changes between the two guitarists. It's hard to tell. They're both playing like rapid fire, like just shreddy leads, but there's still a lot of room for melody in there. And melody is a big part of the leads as well as, all the riffs on here too. Now, as much as I enjoyed this album, and it was a really solid listen, I still do have some complaints, and they're kind of like generalized complaints about tech death when it goes a little bit too overboard. And one of them is it can be absolutely suffocating when it's just going full bore. The songs overall are a little bit longer. There's a couple of songs that are like under the 4-minute mark. The rest of them are 5, 6, and even the last song is over 7 minutes long. And there's a lot of just riff changes and transitions in them. And at points you can kind of like, lose your place in the song. The title track, the big 7.5-minute closer, I do think makes good use of like extending out certain sections a bit more and not transitioning as frequently, because there are some flat out jarring transitions on here that just like hit the brakes like they saw a cop. Parasitic Dream and The Obsidian Architect, well, again, I enjoy those songs. They do have like some really cool qualities that stand out, namely the more Meshuggah-esque riffs that show up on The Obsidian Architect. They both have transitions that just kind of come out of nowhere. Like you get into one of those like serene moments and then it just blasts off into a part that feels like it was just kind of like stitched together there. And I also kind of have like the same issue with the vocals in terms of the vocals transitioning from harsh to clean vocals. I think the clean vocals for the most part are solid. There's a couple of moments of there where, I don't know, like they just sounded a little bit off. It might be just like the production or where they sit in the mix, or it could be the delivery. I'm not ruling that out. But I feel like a lot of the times the cleans can kind of come out of nowhere. Like you're just settling in on like a good harsh part. The vocal cadences, I think, are excellent. This guy's got a good rapid fire delivery, but he knows when to slow it down for like more dramatic impact. But then out of nowhere, a clean section will come in, and it won't be like a chorus hook or a pre-chorus hook. It'll just be a random clean section, and then it'll just drop out into growls and more savage riffs, and it kind of just leaves you wondering why that part was there. Like, why wasn't it pursued a little bit longer? Was it building into something? There are a lot of moments like that on this album where they do the clean to harsh switch, where it just feels, again, like very sudden, like kind of out of nowhere. And it kind of does a disservice to the clean vocals because, generally when you have like a clean vocal part, especially in like, fiercely, heavy music, you kind of want that to stand out as like, you know, a bit of a vocal hook. And sometimes they're just not around long enough to, you know, really have like much of an impact. That could also be said about the music. Like, again, a lot of it is kind of about like a cluttering effect at times. You know, you clutter so much stuff together that it is hard to make out and hard to be like distinguishable. But again, in terms of like technical prowess, these guys are fucking on it. Riff work in here is absolutely savage and just insanely technical and pretty well done. And again, while I can think of a lot of bands that are very similar, I do like the fact that this band is kind of like riding the fence between progressive death metal and technical death metal. I will say my favorite tech death a little bit more, but either way, I think it's pretty solid. And overall, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. The riff work on here is legit awesome. Like, it is crazy. It is creative. The lead work is absolutely amazing. And the whole rhythm section is just tight as hell. And even though like it does get kind of cluttered with a lot of different ideas and a lot of different transitions and such, it is a very listenable album. I do think Empyrean was a little bit smoother overall. There was just a little bit more like empty space. But, you know, at times when it really works, when they kind of like really hammer out the transitions, those sections where it goes from like just flat out like necrophagous worship and blast beats and then going into like a cynic-like passage after that, I dig that. I think it's done pretty damn well. While it might sound like counterintuitive to both tech death and prog death to say less is more, that might be a little bit, you know, effective. Like, there just needs to be like a little bit of breathing room on here at times where it does show up and it is like, you know, specifically dynamic and like a really standout moment. It's awesome. It's just maybe not enough of that. Either way though, if you're a big fan again of The Faceless, Veil of Panath, this band, Archaic, and definitely like some psychroptic and obscure on here too. Check this album out. Give it a whirl. Also, if you dig it, go ahead and check out the one before because I think that one's pretty awesome too. But yeah, check it out. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They are only 99 cents. And our Lone Perk is doing a members-only live stream, which we will eventually put one together for this month. We're still trying to figure out a time. We're also trying to get everything ready for a Sepultura's Greatest Hits and an At the Gates ranking, which is why I'm taking over for this weekend in terms of reviews so I can give the other guys time to catch up. Either way, memberships are the main way to support the channel now. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our hats and shirts. That is linked down below. And there's also a join button down there if you'd like to join up and talk about tech death bands and how fucking wanky they can be. Or maybe not wanky. Maybe I'm just a picky shit. I don't know. And of course, thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that stuff. It means the world to us. Again, all the usual thank you stuff that I say, but I mean it every time. Like, it still just blows me away that, you know, we have this channel and this cool community around us. And, you know, it's just, again, absolutely fucking wild. Tons of content coming in the future. Again, we're working on some bigger videos, and I'm going to try to resurrect some after I catch up with a whole bunch of collection updates, because believe me, those are coming. But yeah, one more big thank you because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.